In the climactic finale of the prestigious patisserie world tournament, the reigning champion, a patissier of unparalleled skill, meets a tragic and unforeseen end. Crushed beneath the colossal weight of his own candy sculpture, his dreams of becoming the world's foremost confectionery artist are abruptly shattered. It seems as though his story has come to a bitter and premature conclusion. Yet destiny has a different script in mind. To his astonishment, a benevolent goddess extends a lifeline, granting him a second chance at existence in an alternate world where he takes on the persona of Pastry Mill Mortone. Fast forward 9 years and the layers of mystery surrounding Pastry's true identity begin to peel away. It is revealed that he is the offspring of a minor lord, Casserole, and his devoted spouse, Agnes. Raised in a bustling household alongside 5 older sisters, Pastry is groomed as the heir to a legacy of military heroes, a path meticulously charted by his parents. However, his unwavering passion for all things sweet persists, a relic of his previous life that refuses to be extinguished. The challenge in Pastry's new reality lies in the unforgiving lands his family possesses, capable only of yielding wheat and barley. In this corner of the world, the abundance of sugar remains an elusive luxury far beyond the reach of most. Undaunted by adversity, Pastry seizes the opportunity for change, determined to carve a path toward his sweet aspirations in a world that demands resilience and resourcefulness. Following a brief training session with his father, Pastry's innovative mind kicks into high gear. It is during this period of creativity and diligence that he crosses paths with Fuel, the head retainer of their household. Under Pastry's astute guidance, the once modest bean fields undergo a remarkable transformation, yielding a bountiful harvest that shines as a beacon of hope in a world where sweetness remains a rare commodity. However, the story takes a twist just as hope begins to blossom. Troubling tidings reach their ears. A menacing band of raiders is steadily closing in on their precious farms. Casserole, recognizing their dire predicament and the glaring lack of manpower to fend off this looming threat, makes a heavy-hearted decision. He concludes that the only recourse is for Pastry to undergo Sanctification, a sacred and mysterious ritual known to unlock latent magical powers. In the days that follow, Casserole and Pastry embark on a journey northward, heading to the bustling capital. Here, amidst the vibrant marketplaces brimming with an array of exotic fruits and unfamiliar ingredients, Pastry's senses are enraptured by the world of flavors and possibilities that lie before him. Pastry's unwavering determination to craft extraordinary desserts in this unfamiliar world surges through his veins, and he eagerly shares this passion with his father. He yearns to partake in the Sanctification ceremony, a testament to his commitment to this newfound pursuit. The ceremony presents Pastry with an extraordinary challenge, enduring 48 hours of sensory deprivation. Despite the daunting nature of the test, Pastry excels, drawing strength from his vivid daydreams filled with tantalizing visions of the delectable desserts he intends to create. To the astonishment of all present, Pastry emerges from the ceremony having unlocked a remarkable magical ability replication. Even the attending priest is left dumbfounded, as this unprecedented magical talent defies any precedent recorded in our history books. Casserole, overwhelmed with joy and pride, decides to make a generous donation to the church, believing it to be a fitting gesture of gratitude. However, unbeknownst to Casserole, a selfish and discontented priest harbors a deep-seated resentment toward him. The priest's bitterness stems from the belief that Casserole attained his lordship through military achievements rather than by being born into nobility, a notion that deeply troubles him. Regrettably, the priest's greed knows no bounds and he remains unsatisfied with Casserole's donation, opting to clandestinely sell information about Pastry's extraordinary magical abilities to the highest bidder, all while keeping Casserole in the dark about his treacherous actions. Casserole's grim discovery reveals that the bandits are mere weeks away from descending upon their vulnerable village. Faced with this looming menace, he takes decisive measures to protect their home, tasking Pastry with the vital mission of rallying neighboring village leaders for assistance. As days pass, Casserole issues the order for a full-scale crop harvest as a prudent precaution. Simultaneously, he ensures all access to water sources is sealed off, while also orchestrating the relocation of residents from 2 nearby villages to their main settlement. This calculated move is a strategic ploy aimed at luring the impending bandit threat directly toward the harvested crops, thereby minimizing the potential for collateral damage in the imminent clash. Despite their concerted efforts to gather a formidable force, Pastry can't help but notice a disheartening reality. They remain significantly outnumbered and outmatched. Their nascent army is predominantly composed of unseasoned peasants with no battle-hardened skills, placing them at a distinct disadvantage in the looming confrontation. The weight of his predicament bears down on Pastry, and he grapples with the harsh realization that with this untrained militia, his cherished dream of crafting enchanting desserts may remain an elusive fantasy. Consequently, he shifts his focus toward devising a defensive strategy, a last-ditch effort to shield their village from impending peril. In response to the impending threat, Pastry springs into action, swiftly assigning his childhood friends, Mark and Lumi, the crucial task of gathering an ample supply of rocks. When the vigilant pair catches sight of the bandits drawing nearer to the village one fateful evening, they race to raise the alarm, ensuring that everyone is promptly alerted to the impending danger. Casserole takes the lead, assuming the role of the rallying commander, his impassioned words echoing through the village, inspiring its inhabitants to rise in defense of their cherished families and homes. Shortly thereafter, Casserole, accompanied by Fuel, embarks on a clandestine mission to gather vital intelligence about the encroaching bandits. Their investigation unveils a startling revelation. The marauding band is composed of former cavalry soldiers who had abandoned their military ranks, now employing a group of unfortunate prisoners as human shields. Armed with this critical knowledge, Casserole and Fuel craft an ingenious strategy. They cunningly entice the renegade cavalry to approach the outskirts of the village, where Pastry and the village-resilient children orchestrate a cacophony of chaos using slingshots and fiery arrows. This artful disruption throws the bandits into disarray, significantly delaying their advance and granting the village a precious opportunity to defend itself. Heartbreakingly, despite their valiant efforts, the bandits manage to reach the village defenses, resulting in the tragic loss of some of the villagers' lives. The situation takes a turn for the worse as the ruthless bandit leader sets his sights on the vulnerable children, his intentions far from benevolent. It is in this critical and perilous moment that Pastry steps forward, resolute in his determination to shield the innocent youngsters from harm. The bandit leader, believing he holds the upper hand, seizes Pastry as a hostage. Yet Pastry possesses a hidden trump card in the form of his remarkable and unique magical ability, Replication. This extraordinary power allows him to duplicate anything he lays his eyes upon. With unwavering resolve, Pastry unleashes the full potential of his replication ability. He replicates the disfigured, fire-scarred visage of one bandit onto every single one of his accomplices. The searing agony that ensues leaves the bandits incapacitated and writhing in pain, swiftly bringing the battle to an abrupt and decisive conclusion. In doing so, Pastry ensures the safety and protection of the village-cherished children, averting a catastrophic tragedy. The bandits, now securely confined within a barn, become the subject of a calculated decision made by Casserole, one guided by both justice and diplomacy. Casserole resolves to transport them to the county of Reincarnates, their original place of origin, a move motivated by multifaceted political considerations. His primary aim is to initiate diplomatic negotiations with Countess Brioche, the ruler of that region. The negotiations' essence lies in Casserole's request for Countess Brioche to shoulder the financial burden of repairing the damages incurred during the skirmish. In return, he offers the return of the bandits to her jurisdiction. This strategic decision carries an additional layer of political subtlety. By transferring the bandits to Countess Brioche, Casserole grants her the opportunity to maintain her reputation unblemished. She can take credit for capturing the bandits, as it was her territory's initial responsibility to handle the situation, further solidifying her standing in the political landscape. In a subsequent development, Pastry's close friends Mark and Lumi receive recognition for their extraordinary bravery. They are bestowed with the bandits' confiscated swords and are designated as Pastry's prospective lieutenants, a momentous honor that fills their parents with immense joy. For Pastry, this news brings a profound sense of relief, as he can now wholeheartedly pursue his passion for crafting delectable sweets, free from the looming specter of danger. In the aftermath of these events, a distressing incident unfolds. Mark and Lumi, driven by curiosity and concern, attempt to gain access to the barn where the bandits are held. However, vigilant guards block their path, refusing them entry. Not to be discouraged, Mark devises a clever diversion, distracting the guards and allowing both of them to stealthily infiltrate the barn. Within the confines of the barn, a crafty bandit leader employs cunning tactics. He tricks Mark into approaching too closely, successfully disarms him, inflicts an injury on Lumi, and then flees with Marcus as hostage. Witnessing this chaotic turn of events, Pastry springs into action. He hastily mounts a horse and embarks on a pursuit to rescue Mark. Engaging in a tense and fiery sword fight with the bandit leader, Pastry initially finds himself at a disadvantage. However, fueled by unwavering determination and courage, Pastry manages to turn the tide in his favor, ultimately defeating his adversary and safely rescuing Mark, who emerges from the ordeal unharmed. Intrigued by Pastry's unexpected triumph over a skilled swordsman, Casserole is keen to uncover the secret behind his success. Pastry, in response, divulges the truth about his extraordinary magical ability. In an unexpected revelation, Pastry confides a well-kept secret: their survival hinged on their ability to replicate Casserole's teleportation magic. This revelation stirs a complex mix of emotions within Casserole, ranging from anger to deep concern. Fearing that the knowledge of Pastry's magical replication abilities might attract the attention of influential and potentially dangerous individuals who would seek to exploit him as a living weapon, Casserole sternly instructs Pastry to keep this information tightly concealed. Amid this tension, Mark takes a moment to express his remorse to Lumi for the injury she sustained during their perilous adventure. Seeking to lighten the mood and commemorate their safe return, Pastry decides to mark the occasion with a delightful apple pie. As they gather to enjoy this joyous moment, an unexpected development occurs. Lumi's father, Glackage, proposes a unique idea to make amends for Mark's earlier misstep. He suggests that Mark make up for his mistake by marrying Lumi. To everyone's surprise, Lumi readily agrees, leaving Mark feeling utterly taken aback by the sudden engagement that has unfolded before him. Recovering from the aftermath of the bandit raid proves to be an arduous task for Casserole. The reopening of the two sealed villages places a heavy financial burden on him, stretching his resources thin. Unfortunately, funds are running low, making it challenging to repair the damaged land and store enough provisions for the impending winter. The escape of the bandit leader further complicates their financial situation, rendering them ineligible for loans from any source. In his subsequent development, Pastry assembles Mark and Lumi for a peculiar request. He asks them to draw an image on the ground, and to their amazement, he employs his replication ability to duplicate the same image onto their hands. This ingenious demonstration sparks an idea in Pastry's mind, a potential solution to their financial woes. Eagerly, he rushes to his father to present his proposal. Recognizing that his sister, Josephine, has reached a suitable age for marriage, Pastry suggests a novel approach. Instead of the traditional method, which involves significant travel expenses for noble families to arrange suitable matches, Pastry proposes using replication to create images of their children's faces, making the matchmaking process more cost-effective. These matchmaking photos offer an efficient alternative, allowing noble families to exchange them through messengers, eliminating the need for extensive and costly travel. Additionally, this approach serves to clarify that Pastry's magical ability is limited to replicating images, dispelling any misconceptions or misgivings. In his subsequent development, Casserole and Pastry embark on a visit to Countess Brioche, a savvy and politically astute ruler who ascended to power over the Reincarnates territory at a young age. She graciously serves them tea and biscuits as a display of her opulence. However, she becomes puzzled by Pastry's seemingly unfavorable opinion of her, and her surprise deepens when he brings up her failure to address the bandit situation. She had expected such audacious actions from Casserole, not from Pastry. Pastry, with his diplomatic finesse, skillfully maneuvers the conversation, coaxing Brioche into acknowledging her responsibility and agreeing to provide compensation for the damages inflicted upon his father's lands. Brioche consents to the arrangement, all the while perplexed by the apparent flaw in her biscuits. Much to her astonishment, Pastry points out that the biscuits are excessively sweet, their flavor clashing with the tea, a revelation that leaves her as taken aback. Countess Brioche finds herself genuinely impressed by Pastry's astute knowledge and becomes truly captivated when she witnesses the remarkable prowess of his replication ability. This newfound admiration leads her to consider the possibility that Pastry may be an individual worth observing closely, particularly after he utilizes his unique talent to replicate her image as a thoughtful gift, further showcasing the extent of his extraordinary abilities. Casserole and Pastry attend a grand banquet hosted by Lord Cadleck, the esteemed leader of the kingdom's army. During the event, Cadleck introduces them to his rather reserved grandson, Squall. Cadleck is taken aback when he learns that Pastry has unlocked his magical abilities through Sanctification. Intrigued, he requests Pastry to demonstrate his remarkable gift. In response, Pastry creates a portrait of Lady Petra Huberg and presents it as a gift to Squall. As it turns out, Lady Petra is actively seeking a husband, and Squall is instantly smitten by her beauty. However, Lord Cadleck interprets Pastry's gesture as a manipulated marriage proposal, and his anger flares up. The situation becomes more complex when it's revealed that the Huberg family has an ongoing feud with their neighboring duchy. In a surprising twist, Pastry discreetly informs Lord Cadleck that Margrave Huberg is exploiting Petra's betrothal for illicit purposes in their feud. This revelation prompts Cadleck to reconsider his anger, and instead he becomes composed. He is impressed by Pastry's political acumen at such a young age. Cadleck decides to publicly visit Margrave Huberg with the aim of arranging a meeting between Squall and Petra as a step towards resolving the feud diplomatically. Through this chain of events, the news of the Huberg family's ongoing feud with their neighboring duchy eventually reaches the king's attention. Pastry is relieved as this outcome aligns perfectly with his intentions when he discreetly informs Lord Cadleck about the Huberg's actions. In the following days, Squall and Petra secretly became engaged, knowing that their enemies would be furious if they discovered Petra's betrothal. As a result, Cadleck hires Casserole to ensure Petra's safe journey into the capital for her upcoming coming-of-age ceremony. The primary challenge for Casserole is to prevent the church from inadvertently revealing Petra's secret engagement with Squall. Pastry, always quick on his feet, comes up with a brilliant idea. He suggests hiding Petra in the Sanctification chamber of the church, ensuring her safety from potential assassins while also keeping her engagement concealed. During their journey, the carriage comes under attack by assassins. Pastry steps up and successfully defends Petra and her sister Lycoris, thwarting the assailants' plans. Following this ordeal, Lycoris finds herself developing a crush on Pastry. To guarantee their safety, Casserole employs his teleportation magic to whisk everyone away to the city's cathedral. Meanwhile, the story shifts to Lord Armire, Margrave Hubert's adversary. He hires a group of mercenaries and instructs them to capture Lady Petra unharmed. In a cunning scheme, Lord Armire intends to feign rescuing Petra, aiming to publicly humiliate Lord Cadleck. If he succeeds in this endeavor, Armire plans to exploit the situation by marrying Petra, thus potentially restoring his lost noble status. It's a treacherous plan that hinges on the pretense of being both the villain and the savior. Back at the cathedral, the sanctification ceremony for Petra commences. Knowing it will be a lengthy process, Casserole instructs Pastry to assist Lycoris in finding some relaxation in one of the guest rooms. She seems quite fatigued, and her turn for sanctification is approaching. As a result, Pastry guides her to a comfortable guest room to unwind. Later on, a staff officer from the Central Army named Vejan arrives outside the cathedral. He's been tasked by General Cadleck to escort Lady Petra, ensuring that a sanctified Petra can attend her official engagement announcement party with Squall. Meanwhile, Pastry finds himself in a challenging situation with Lycoris' strict maid, Cara. She's fiercely protective of Lycoris' reputation and is vehemently against the idea of Lycoris being alone with a young man like Pastry. However, their argument is abruptly interrupted when the mercenaries, using magic, launch an attack aimed at capturing Pastry and Lycoris. They succeed in their kidnapping attempt. Casserole, noticing the commotion, swiftly intervenes to rescue them. While Pastry does his best to keep Lycoris from panicking, he uses his magical abilities to subtly manipulate the enemy. In doing so, he coerces them into revealing that they've been hired by Lord Armire, a disgraced duke who has been stripped of his nobility. Thinking on his feet, Pastry teleports a message to his father, who assembles a group of men to mount an assault on the Armire mansion. Meanwhile, at the Duke's house, the engagement ceremony between Lady Petra and Squall proceeds without any issues. Unbeknownst to them, the mercenary chief realizes they've abducted the wrong sister and contemplates killing Lycoris. Pastry, managing to free himself from his restraints, takes down one of the mercenaries and challenges the chief to a duel, determined to protect Lycoris. Fortunately, Casserole and his men launch a daring invasion of Lord Armire's mansion, leaving Armire utterly shocked. In the midst of the chaos, they manage to reunite with Pastry and successfully retrieve Lycoris. However, the cunning chief of the mercenaries, sensing his disadvantage, utilizes his magical abilities to make a swift escape. Retainers from the houses of Cadleck and Hubert also arrive on the scene to save Lady Lycoris and escort her back to her father. Lord Armire finds himself under arrest, facing the consequences of his treacherous actions. Casserole takes a moment to impart a valuable lesson to Pastry, emphasizing how the actions of a suzerain lord can profoundly impact the fate of an entire family. He then assigns Fuel the task of reporting the incident's details before rushing off with Pastry to pursue the mercenary chief. Pastry, with his keen instincts, realizes that the enemy hasn't truly escaped and is likely hiding underground. His hunch proves to be correct, sparking a fierce battle between him and the mercenary chief. In a surprising turn of events, Pastry easily overpowers the chief, and it's revealed that Pastry had magically sabotaged the chief's sword back when they were still bound, ultimately sealing the victory. 1 month later, Pastry and Casserole attend the official engagement ceremony of Lady Petra and Lord Squall held at the royal castle. During the event, Pastry takes the opportunity to have a candid conversation with Lord Cadleck. He raises his concerns about how unlikely it would be for mercenaries to easily kidnap Lycoris without covert assistance from someone who desired the complete downfall of House Armire. Cadleck, realizing that Pastry has pieced together the puzzle, is surprised by the young man's keen intellect. He admits his involvement in the incident and his misjudgment. Pastry seizes this moment to negotiate a deal. In exchange for his silence on the matter, Cadleck agrees to provide financial support for improving his father's farmlands. Just then, Lord Hubert makes an appearance and employs his cunning persuasion to convince a bewildered Pastry to agree to marry Lycoris. Casserole is taken aback by this turn of events but chooses not to voice any objections. Despite his earlier agreement, Cadleck, still somewhat irritated by Pastry's intelligence, decides to make the engagement announcement public. Lycoris is overjoyed by the news, and Pastry, committed to her happiness, makes a heartfelt promise to always keep her content. In a touching gesture, Lycoris, aware of Pastry's love for sweets, makes cookies as a gift for him. Pastry is genuinely excited to try them, but as he takes a bite, he realizes that Lycoris has inadvertently used salt instead of sugar in the recipe. Despite the unpleasant taste, Pastry forces himself to eat the cookies, concealing the truth to spare Lycoris's feelings. In a dramatic fashion, Casserole breaks the news to Agnes that Pastry is now engaged to Lycoris, leaving her utterly shocked. However, to his great surprise, Agnes is filled with overwhelming happiness upon hearing the news of her future daughter-in-law. Her joy knows no bounds at the prospect of gaining a new family member. On the flip side, Countess Brioche catches wind of Pastry's engagement to a noble lady and becomes infuriated. She suspects that House Huberc is executing a political maneuver to strengthen their position by marrying one daughter to Squall and another to Pastry. This blatant power play by Lord Huberc is a direct challenge to Brioche's influence, and she realizes she has been outmaneuvered. Determined to respond, she begins plotting her own countermove. Meanwhile, the aid that Pastry had requested from Lord Cablec and Lord Squall finally arrives. They have sent black locust saplings, resilient trees that can thrive in poor soil conditions and produce nectar, which serves as a substitute for honey. Pastry confides in Mark and Lumi, cautioning them about potential issues if they attempt to cultivate the black locust saplings in the fief of Mortellon. The region receives relatively little rainfall, and trees planted there often struggle to survive, frequently withering before reaching full maturity. Consequently, Pastry decides to take a different approach by devising a plan to construct reservoirs that can store rainwater, addressing the water scarcity issue. Meanwhile, Casserole experiences a short-lived moment of elation as his farms turn a profit, all thanks to Pastry's efforts. However, his joy is swiftly tempered when Fuel informs him that Pastry is once again embarking on a potentially drastic endeavor. The plot then shifts to Pastry, who drills a tunnel by replicating the spell used by the mercenaries' leader, implying a new and ambitious project in the works. Pastry successfully completes the construction of 3 substantial reservoirs, though Casserole is utterly enraged to discover that his son has flattened a mountain in the process. In his anger, Casserole decides to punish Pastry, Mark, and Lumi with a light beating as a consequence of their actions. Meanwhile, Countess Brioche, with no daughter to marry off to Pastry and being too old to marry him herself, hatches a new plot to achieve her goals. The reservoirs created by Pastry begin collecting an abundance of rainwater, prompting the villagers to construct permanent canals for irrigation, benefiting both their farms and Pastry's trees. In the midst of all of this, Pastry receives a letter inviting him to a tea party hosted by Countess Brioche. Sensing that she likely has ulterior motives, Pastry decides to seek counsel from his father. Unexpectedly, Casserole arrives with Lycoris and announces that she will be living with their family from now on, leaving Pastry stunned. Lord Huberc is deeply suspicious of Countess Brioche's intentions regarding Pastry, so he strategically arranges for Lycoris to accompany Pastry to the tea party, hoping her presence will deter any illicit plans. With genuine excitement, Pastry showcases his preparations of honey-flavored sweets for the event, further endearing himself to Lycoris. Agnes and Josephine secretly spy on the young couple, becoming increasingly frustrated as they observe Pastry's unwavering focus on making delights rather than Lycoris. Pastry's delectable sweets become an instant sensation as the tea party unfolds, primarily attended by young nobles in search of potential marriage prospects. Pastry, on the other hand, is inspired by the enthusiastic response to his creation, so he proposes the idea of regular trade between Casserole and other noble families. He does, however, attach a critical condition. These trade agreements must be exempt from the oppressive sugar tax. Countess Brioche, a key figure in trade negotiations, seizes the opportunity to speak privately with Pastry about this matter, leaving Lycoris under the watchful gaze of her maid, Carat, and the vigilant guard, Nico. During their private conversation, Pastry confides in Brioche, sharing his audacious vision of producing sugar from Casserole's farms in a remarkably short 3-year timeframe. Brioche is intrigued by this ambitious goal, and she grants him access to her coastal ports for shipping his delectable sweets. She is, however, completely unaware of his true motivations. In Pastry's absence, Lycoris inadvertently overhears gossiping nobles, whose insidious words sow seeds of doubt in her mind. She begins to worry that Pastry will abandon her in search of a more prestigious bride. Overwhelmed by these troubling thoughts, she considers leaving the party in emotional distress. Countess Brioche, sensing Lycoris's unease, seizes the opportunity to question Pastry about his feelings for Lycoris. This unexpected question throws Pastry off guard, resulting in an awkward and delicate situation. As things start to get heated, Lycoris makes a surprise appearance. Her heart is heavy with confusion and doubt as she watches Pastry and Brioche have an intimate moment. Lycoris, overwhelmed by her emotions, runs away from the awkward situation, much to the amusement of Countess Brioche. Tearfully, Lycoris regrets not being more like Petra, who could bravely stand up to bullies. Pastry, however, reassures her, expressing that it's perfectly acceptable to be herself rather than trying to emulate someone else. He offers her a toffee apple as a small comfort, and in that tender moment, they nearly share a kiss, only to be abruptly interrupted by the disapproving presence of Camera. upon their return home as a form of petty revenge for upsetting Lycoris. Pastry uses images of Brioche embracing him as wrappers for his sweets, which are then sent to all of his customers. This unconventional act sparks rumors, leading to the false belief that the humiliated Countess Brioche has a penchant for younger men. Consequently, Brioche begins receiving marriage proposals from nobles as young as 8 to 10 years old, a situation she finds both exasperating and embarrassing. Meanwhile, Margrave Luteraut, an adversary of Hubert and enraged by Petra's engagement to Squall, decides to launch an invasion of Hubert's territory with a formidable force of 30,000 men in an attempt to settle their rivalry before Petra can marry into the Cadlec family. As for Pastry, he continues with his ambitious plans, aiming to acquire goats and chickens for their milk and eggs, and working on producing sugar from sweet grass. However, his initial attempt to construct a sugar-extracting machine meets with failure. It's Lycoris who astutely suggests that he could achieve the desired result by using a great press commonly employed in winemaking. Eager to proceed, Pastry rushes to request Casserole purchase a great press, only to receive troubling news. The ongoing rivalry between Hubert, Luteraut, and their various allies has plunged the kingdom into a devastating civil war, leaving Pastry facing unforeseen challenges in his quest for culinary excellence and a prosperous future for his family. In the midst of the kingdom's devastating civil war, Margrave Luteraut cunningly assumes that the conflict has strained the alliance between Hubert and Cadlec. To deepen their discord, he hatches a sinister plan to target Squall, realizing that Squall's death, as Petra's fiancé and the heir to the Cadlec family, would inflict devastating losses upon both noble houses. While Pastry acknowledges the gravity of the war and its potential consequences, he feels somewhat powerless in the grand scheme of things. However, he chooses to channel his focus on the family's farms, determined to make a meaningful contribution to their well-being. Amid these troubling times, Pastry receives distressing news. The noble Baron Lunsvig has forcibly purchased the goats intended for them from a trader before they could be delivered. Lunsvig is notorious for bullying less noble families, but the pressing demands of the war, particularly for food supplies, make it impractical to file a complaint regarding the misappropriated goats. Pastry and Casserole, resourceful and resolute in their determination, come to a realization. They can retrieve their goats and simultaneously contribute to the war effort by volunteering as reinforcements for Hubert's forces. By doing so, they gain priority access to crucial war supplies. With their resolve fortified, they depart for the front lines where their mettle will be tested in the crucible of battle. Meanwhile, as a noble, Squall feels compelled to do the honorable thing and joins the front lines as well. However, Hubert, aware of the risks, assigns Squall to a less perilous area to ensure his safety. Margrave Luteraut, anticipating this move, dispatches a substantial force to lie in wait for Squall, aiming to capitalize on his vulnerability. Both Casserole and Pastry are astute enough to decipher Luteraut's intentions and arrive just in the nick of time to thwart the ambush, safeguarding Squall from the perilous clutches of the enemy. In this dire and chaotic wartime landscape, alliances are forged, tested, and redefined as the struggle for survival and honor rages on.